The U.S. Special Envoy Tim Lenderking visits the region to push for peace efforts in Yemen. Teachers strike in Houthi-controlled areas over unpaid salaries enters fourth week. Thousands of displaced families in Shabwa province face dire humanitarian situation. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Injil Zazi. The U.S. Special Envoy for Yemen, Tim Lenderking, travels to the Gulf to advance the UN-led efforts to expand the truce. According to the statement of the U.S. Department, Lenderking will meet with Yemeni, Saudi, Emirati, Omani and international officials. The U.S. diplomat will discuss ways to secure a durable ceasefire and launch an inclusive UN-mediated political process while ensuring continued efforts to ease the economic crisis and suffering of Yemenis. Despite the persecution, arrests and threats against them, teachers in Houthi-controlled areas continue their strike for the fourth week in a row. The following report has more.
Yemeni teachers have gone on strike in Houthi-controlled areas as outrage grows over the militia's failure to pay public employees. In a rare public protest, teachers in Yemen's capital Sana'a and other major cities skipped classes to pressure the Houthis to pay their salaries, which they have not received for 7 years. Teachers Club, an umbrella organization for teachers in Houthi-controlled areas, said in a series of statements that the teachers decided to strike after learning the senior Houthi leaders in the Supreme Political Council, ministers, MPs and public employees, administrators of electricity and water, among others, are getting paid regularly. On Sunday, the club confirmed the strike and said that the Houthis have begun abducting teachers and dismissing others in order to push them not to walk out. The teachers said that the Houthis approved an emergency timetable that includes replacing striking teachers with others who can teach courses over a short period of time. According to the Houthi plan, instead of 16, a physics teacher will teach only 4 classes every month. Thousands of government employees in Houthi-controlled areas have not been paid since late 2016. When the militia refused to deliver state income to the central bank in Aden in protest of its relocation from Sana'a. Despite collecting billions of Yemeni riyals from state entities and other sources, the Houthis refused to pay public employees and insisted that the Yemeni government in Aden should do so. The Houthis responded to the walkout by kidnapping teachers, including a union head named Mohsen Eldar, questioning others at security facilities and accusing them of working for the internationally recognized government and the Arab coalition. Head of the teachers' union said that he received painful accounts of unpaid teachers committing suicide or breaking up with their spouses because they were unable to feed their children or pay rent.
The Houthi celebration of their sectarian events fueled the anger of Yemenis, where the group wastes billions of Yemeni riyals on such occasions. They continue to ignore the demands of public employees to pay their salaries that have been interrupted for 8 years. This report has more.
The Houthi celebrations of their sectarian events fueled the discontent of the Yemenis, where the group wastes billions of Yemeni riyals and ignored the demands of the public servants to pay their salaries that have been interrupted for 8 years. Media sources counted the Houthi militia organizing more than 118 celebrations within 2 weeks, and informed sources in Sana'a estimated that the militia spent the equivalent of $5 million on the events they recently held. Residents in Sana'a believe that the militia continue to squander money for the benefit of their followers by holding events that promote their sectarian ideas at the expense of millions who the United Nations says are on the verge of starvation. Last Saturday, the group resorted to mobilizing its followers, forcing residents, employees and students in the areas under its control to forcibly participate in its celebration, ignoring the high prices, the expansion of hunger, poverty, unemployment, and the lack of basic services. Yemeni activists launched a campaign of widespread criticism deploring the Houthi militia's preoccupation with celebrating a sectarian occasion at a time when millions of residents in the cities under its control are still suffering from multiple crises.
The joint forces have taken control of the mountains of Wadi Jenin, one of the strongholds of the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda. The commander of the Abiyan Axis confirmed that forces had spread throughout the mountains of Wadi Jenin after storming and controlling it, as it is considered one of the strongholds of the terrorist organization Al-Qaeda. One young man was wounded by a sniper of the terrorist Houthi militia south of Taiz. Since the beginning of the war, local reports stated that about 235 people were killed or wounded by militia snipers in El Shaqab area south of Taiz, most of whom were women and children.
Along Yemen's coastline, UNDP's support to replace equipment and provide financial grants enables the re-establishment of a centuries-old industry, fisheries. Once Yemen's second most valuable export, after oil and gas, the blue economy has the potential to help rejuvenate the economy and provide a valuable food source to millions of food-insecure Yemenis.
قبل ما نستلم الماكينة كان الوضع يعلم بهالله، بس كان الوضع متعب، الماكينة تعبانة، نسرح ونضوي، شغلك محصور. والآن الحمد لله بعد ما استلمت الماكينة ده العمل ريض، وانا بت بعيد وقريب وانا مبسوط لي مطمن من المحرك اللي معي، انا عاطينا الامان كامل.
UNDP helps fisherfolk reduce operational costs, limit fuel consumption, and increase daily catch. As the changing climate and marine ecosystems demand more flexibility, modern equipment and new skills help fisherfolk to navigate unpredictable weather safely and limit their impact on an already fragile sea environment.
Yemen's government renewed its complete rights in the revenues of the crude oil recently transferred from the Safer tanker. Yemeni Transport Minister affirmed after meeting with the United Nations Development Program team that the ownership of the Safer tanker and the oil revenues that were stored in it belong to the internationally recognized government. During the past week, Massam project managed to clear more than 1,000 mines. The project stated that the total number of the Houthi mines removed reached more than 410,000 mines. The International Organization for Migration announced the displacement of 60 Yemeni families within a week. The majority of those families has moved to the governorates of Hadramaut, Taiz, and Hodeidah. Since the beginning of this year, more than 24,000 people have been displaced. Thousands of displaced families in Shabwa province face dire humanitarian situation amid cuts in international aid due to funding crisis. This report has more.
Displaced families are staying here inside these dilapidated buildings after they were forced to leave their homes. This is an inevitable result in a country living through the unjust war conditions for 9 years. These buildings do not protect them from the summer heat or the winter cold, nor do they protect them from the blistering winds or from the storms of rain. The displaced people live a life full with dangers. The walls are very weak and could collapse on their heads any minute. They are also surrounded with snakes scattered around the place.
We're living here amid these ruins. My daughter was bit by a snake yesterday and we took her to the hospital. Our condition is really bad. We don't have anything, no food, water, or electricity. Our children are suffering in front of us and we're not able to do anything.
These women and children, since they were displaced from their places of origin due to the war, have settled within the ruins of El Shuala school in Osailan district, struggle with hunger, poverty and disease because they lack the simplest necessities of life.
I came from Lahj Governorate. We are suffering from hunger and starvation inside these ruins. No one is providing us with humanitarian and relief aid. I'm asking the authorities to pay some attention to our case and provide us with the necessary support.
Despite the human tragedy under which these people are suffering, they are not given priority or right in obtaining humanitarian and relief aid to relieve their painful conditions. They are facing negligence, exclusion, deprivation, and starvation.
We're all starving here and we don't have food. We're not receiving any support, water, gas, electricity, or proper shelter. Our families and children are suffering and no one cares.
Perhaps many of the displaced have resorted to abandoned buildings and ruins and have taken homes from them due to the absence of refugee camps along Shabwa Governorate. In light of the inaction, neglect, and disregard of those concerned in the official authorities, the administration of the board and the management of the executive unit for the displaced.
Coming next in the news. Heart diseases had the highest governorate amid poor healthcare services. Welcome back. Yemeni officials warned of negative repercussions on government revenues if the Houthi militia proceeds to implement its decision to impose 100% tax and customs duties on all goods coming from government-controlled areas. This report has more.
Yemeni officials have warned of significant negative repercussions on government revenues and port operations under its control if the Houthi group decides to impose 100% tax and customs duties on all goods coming from government-controlled areas. The Houthi group has been imposing customs taxes for the past 7 years on goods coming from government-held areas at a rate of 20%. This amount, compared to the exchange rate in government-controlled areas, has not significantly affected importers. However, the recent imposition of 100% fees by the Minister of Finance in the coup government will force importers to reroute their goods due to the exorbitant tax fees. Contrary to the Houthis' claims that there are obstacles to food imports into their areas of control, a UN report revealed that imports through Hodeidah increased by more than 380% during the first half of this year compared to the amounts arriving in government-controlled areas. According to a report by the WFP for July, food imports arriving at the Houthi-controlled port of Hodeidah during the first half of this year were more than 3 times the amount that arrived through government-controlled ports. Whereas 2,038 metric tons reached the ports of Hodeidah, the government-controlled ports of Aden and Mukalla received only 528 metric tons. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization's Global Food Price Index, prices continued their downward path, reaching their lowest levels in the past 2 years. The cost of the minimum food basket decreased by 2% in the areas under the authority of the Houthis, while it increased by 1% in the areas controlled by the government compared to the previous month.
Shipping sources said that the Houthi militia has taken over the transport movement in the ports of Hodeidah. The sources revealed the militia provided 350 trucks to transport goods from the ports of Hodeidah using the assets and carriers of the Yemeni Economic Corporation and bought additional large numbers to monopolize transport from the ports. The war's social and financial pressures have cast shadow on the health of Yemenis. Heart diseases have seen a rise recently, while the medical services are inadequate. This report has more.
Dozens of heart patients wait for a new shot at life on the sidewalks and in the yard of the Cardiovascular Center, Taz's only governmental health institution, amid a rising number of patients.
The current economic and political climate has left many Yemenis grappling with illnesses. Many patients are struggling with heart diseases and cannot afford medication. There needs to be a more dominant role played by the health sector to alleviate the patient's suffering. Thankfully, things are looking up.
Taz has the highest prevalence of heart disease in Yemen, and while no reliable figures on the number of heart patients are available, the rise in cases is overwhelming, with half of the patients attending under the age of 40.
At the Cardiovascular Center, patients fall into the 30s and 40s age range. There are several reasons why this demographic is falling ill, including early-stage checkups and diagnosis due to the deterioration of the health sector, particularly in rural areas. The economic situation has also made it difficult to procure medicine.
In 2 years and 4 months, the Cardiovascular Center was able to perform 500 open heart operations and 1,600 qualitative vascular operations.
Each month, the center spends 700,000 Yemeni Riyal on diesel. 3 of our 250 highly qualified medical staff members are foreigners who require lodging and airfare. This adds up to $35,000 every month, plus the $6,000 needed for our janitorial workforce. The center needs 50 million Yemeni Riyals every month to operate.
The ongoing conflict, blockade, social and economic strains, as well as the high rates of poverty and unemployment, continue to serve as warning signs of a healthcare crisis.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. The U.S. Special Envoy Tim Lenderking visits the region to push for peace efforts in Yemen. Teachers strike in Houthi-controlled areas over unpaid salaries enters 4th week. Thousands of displaced families in Shabwa province face dire humanitarian situation. This is the end of the news. It was Injil Zazi. Thank you for watching.